Let me ask you something before I say a single word about success. Before I talk about winning, before I talk about rising, I need you to look yourself in the mirror right now and ask, how bad do you actually want it? Not how bad do you talk about it, not how bad you post about it. How bad do you want it when nobody's watching, when the lights are off, when it's cold, when you're exhausted and broken and the world is giving you every reason to quit? Because today we're not talking but people who are handed greatness. We are talking about the ones who are handed nothing, no connections, no money, no support, no roadmap, and still found a way. We're talking about the kind of transformation that doesn't happen in a speech. It happens in the dark. It happens in silence. It happens when you decide that where you started will not determine where you finish. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share is not just a motivational talk. It is a blueprint. It is a warning. It is a mirror. And by the time we reach the end of this, I want you to walk out of this room different, not inspired for a day, changed for a lifetime. Every single person who ever built something great started from a place of pain, not from privilege, not from a perfect family, a perfect neighborhood, or a perfect opportunity. They started from a crack in the wall, from a cold floor, from an empty fridge, from the shame of being told they weren't enough. And here is the thing most people never understand, that pain was not their punishment. That pain was their fuel. You see, most people run from pain. They numb it. They distract themselves. They scroll. They drink. They laugh it off in front of others and then cry about it alone. And because they never sit with it, because they never look it in the eye, they never transform it, they stay stuck in the story of what happened to them instead of using what happened to them to write a completely different story. The people who go from nothing to something never forget the pain. They use it every single morning when the alarm goes off at 4 a.m. and the bed is warm and every cell in their body says stay. They remember the pain. They remember the embarrassment. They remember what it felt like to have no options. And that memory becomes their motivation. Pain that is not processed becomes poison, but pain that is processed becomes power. The question is not whether you have been hurt. The question is, what are you doing with the hurt? Everybody has a dream. You know that. Dreams are cheap. You can have a dream lying on the couch. You can have a dream scrolling social media. You can have a dream while someone else is out there grinding, sweating, failing, getting back up and building. The dream is not what separates winners from everyone else. What separates them is hunger. A relentless, bone deep, can't eat, can't sleep kind of hunger for more. Hunger is not excitement. Excitement fades in 3 weeks when it gets hard. Hunger is what stays at 2 a.m. when everything is falling apart and you still open the laptop. Hunger is what makes you study your craft on weekends when your friends are relaxing. Hunger is what makes rejection fuel you instead of finish you. Hungry people don't need someone to push them. They push themselves because the alternative, which is staying exactly where they are, is simply not acceptable to them. People with talent but no hunger will always be outworked by people with average talent and incredible hunger. Always. You can be the most gifted person in the room and still lose to someone who simply wants it more. So the real question is not how talented are you? The real question is how hungry are you? And more importantly, are you hungry enough to stay that way when it gets uncomfortable? Because comfort is the enemy of the hungry. And if you ever get too comfortable, the dream starts to die quietly, without warning, without announcement. Here is the truth nobody wants to talk about. Greatness is not built in the moment everyone sees. It is built in all the moments nobody sees. It is built at 5 a.m. when you're the only one in the gym. It is built on the Tuesday night when no one is watching, no one is clapping, no one is liking your post, and you still show up and do the work. That is where character is built. That is where championships are decided. Long before the world gets to witness the result, consistency is the most underrated quality in the world. People celebrate the breakthrough moment. They celebrate the record deal, the promotion, the viral success. But nobody talks about the 1,000 days of quiet, invisible, unrewarded discipline that made the breakthrough possible. Nobody talks about all the times this person showed up and got no results and kept showing up anyway. That is the real story. The visible success is just the surface. Beneath it is an ocean of consistency. And this is where most people fail, not because they didn't have the ability, not because the world was against them, but because they were only consistent when they felt motivated, when they felt seen, when they felt progress. The moment the progress stopped, they stopped. But the greats, the people who go from nothing to something, they understand that the seasons when growth feels invisible are actually the most important seasons of all. The tree is not growing upward in winter. It is growing deeper. The roots go down before the branches go up. Consistency in the dark is what creates the roots. Show me your 5 closest people and I will show you your future. Not because of who they are as human beings, but because of the conversations you're having, the standards you're holding, the expectations that have been normalized in that circle. If everyone around you is comfortable with mediocrity, you will eventually make peace with mediocrity too. Not because you are weak, but because human beings are wired to conform to their environment. It is biology, not failure. The people who go from nothing to something make a choice that is incredibly painful. They upgrade their environment. Sometimes that means leaving behind people who love them. People who mean well, but who are unconsciously pulling them back toward the familiar. And that is one of the hardest things a person can ever do, walk away from the comfort of belonging in order to walk toward the discomfort of becoming. Most people cannot make that trade. They choose belonging over becoming and then wonder why years go by and nothing changes. But if you are serious, if you truly want to go from nothing to something, you have to become ruthlessly intentional about your environment. The books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the voices you allow in your head, the people sitting at your table, all of it is either pulling you forward or holding you back. There is no neutral. Every environment is either a greenhouse or a desert. Your job is to find the greenhouse, plant yourself there, and then protect that environment like your life depends on it. Because your dream absolutely does. Everything great has a price tag. And the price tag is not money. The price tag is sacrifice. It is saying no to things that feel good so you can say yes to things that build something real. It is skipping the party on Friday, not because you hate people, but because Sunday morning matters more to you than Saturday night. It is turning off the television, logging off social media, and putting those hours into something that your future self will thank you for. Sacrifice is not punishment. It is an investment with the highest possible return. But here is what people misunderstand about sacrifice. They think it requires willpower. They think you have to white knuckle your way through every temptation. That is exhausting and it doesn't work long term. Real sacrifice happens when your why becomes bigger than your want. When your vision for what you're building is so clear, so vivid, so non-negotiable that saying no to distractions feels natural, not forced. You don't sacrifice what you deeply love. You sacrifice what you thought you wanted in order to protect what you know you need. The people who go from nothing to something are not superhuman. They did not have more hours in the day. They did not have a secret formula. They made a decision to trade short-term comfort for long-term significance. While others were consuming, they were creating. While others were resting, they were researching. While others were settling, they were sacrificing. And after years of those small daily trades, the gap between where they started and where they ended up became so enormous that the world called it an overnight success. There is no overnight success. There is only the price that was paid in private. This is the key that unlocks everything else. And most people never find it. They are waiting for their circumstances to change before they change how they see themselves. They say, when I get the money, I'll feel confident. When I get the opportunity, I'll feel ready. When things settle down, I'll finally start. But that is backwards. That is completely backwards. Circumstances do not create identity. Identity creates circumstances. You have to see yourself as the person you are becoming before the world reflects that back to you. Every person who went from nothing to something had a moment, often a quiet, internal, deeply personal moment where they decided who they were, not who they had been told they were. Not what their past said about them, not what the statistics predicted for someone from their zip code or their background. They decided that the old story was over and a new one was beginning. That decision happened before the evidence showed up. That decision happened in faith, in defiance of everything visible, and it changed everything. Because when you truly shift your identity, your behavior follows automatically. You don't have to force discipline. Disciplined people are just disciplined. You don't have to force confidence. Confident people just carry themselves with confidence. The shift is internal and the external world eventually catches up. Stop waiting for proof before you believe in yourself. The proof comes after the belief. Never before. You must become in your mind what you have not yet become in your life. Hold that vision, protect that identity, and refuse, absolutely refuse to let anyone talk you out of who you are becoming. So here is where we land. Nothing to something is not a destination. It is a decision. It is the decision to let your pain fuel you instead of break you. It is the decision to stay hungry when comfort is calling. It is the decision to show up in the dark, in the silence, with nobody watching and give everything you have. It is the decision to outgrow environments that no longer match your vision, even when that hurts. It is the decision to sacrifice today for a tomorrow that most people can't even imagine for you, but you can imagine for yourself. And above all, it is the decision to become the person before the world gives you permission to be that person. You were not born to be average. Average is not your assignment. I don't care where you started. I don't care what has happened to you. I don't care how many times you've been knocked down, overlooked, counted out, or left behind. None of that, not a single bit of it, has the authority to determine where you finish. The only thing with that authority is you, your decision, your hunger, your consistency, your sacrifice, your identity. Nothing to something begins today. It begins right now. It begins with the decision that you make in the next 60 seconds, that this is the moment everything changes. Not when you feel ready, not when the timing is perfect. Now, make the decision. Go become something extraordinary. Good luck on your journey. You were built for this. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your courage to listen. Now go prove it.